To Congressman Heck, thank you for your advocacy, support, and service. How do you plan to stay transparent and accountable to all of us as you work on public policy here and in DC to send a clear message that non-white skin is not an invitation to brutality and murder at the hands of the authorities?
Tanya, I couldn't agree with you more. It most certainly is not. But as a matter of historic fact, it has been tragically and unfortunately. To some degree, I'll be repeating some of what I said at the top of the program. But I think where this conversation has to begin is an acknowledgement that the issues of racism in this society are systemic. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is pervasive throughout the culture and society. And as a consequence, what I often say to people is, since the problem's systemic, the solutions are going to have to be systemic. So if you want to think in government speak, it means that you can't just set up a siloed vertical program over here to attack the problem. It means every avenue of delivery of public service and endeavor and undertaking, from criminal justice to housing to healthcare, must have itself inherent in it, embedded in it, a program and an effort to root out the issue of racism. But the second thing that I want to say, Tony, is I think it's really important as well, especially for somebody that is a privileged white male. You can see that I am a privileged white male. It's really important that we listen. And as a consequence of that, part of what we have been doing is reaching out and listening to the Congressional Black Caucus and the other members of the Quad Caucus. As a matter of fact, we have the Hispanic Caucus, we have the Asian American Pacific Caucus, and we have a newly formed Native American Caucus in the House Democratic Conference, and to listen to them about what they think are the solutions. Listening is always a good first bet for dealing with this. Now, having said that, of course, I have lots of ideas about how we can undertake this, but the truth is we need to listen. And in the course of that conversation, I hope that we get at some issues like criminal justice reform, police reform, do things like cameras, body cameras, way overdue in Tacoma, for goodness sake. They were approved, I believe, 5 years ago. Have to get to issues of accountability. Indeed, I've been very direct. I think we have to completely rethink the use of force by our law enforcement entities in this country and what appropriate standards are. Clearly, it was an excessive use of force for that police officer in Minneapolis to put his knee on George Floyd's neck until he squeezed the life out of him. That was excessive force. All that, I might acknowledge or remind people, over an alleged $20 counterfeit bill. So there are lots of things that we can do, and they must be systemic, and we must commit ourselves to them. I think we also have to acknowledge that these issues are structural. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you're born poor and or a person of color in this country and the starting gun goes off, you're not at the starting line. You're way back there. Or you're at the starting line with an 80-pound back on your pack. The truth of the matter is that the discrimination visited upon one's ancestors echoes through the generations, because you have less of an opportunity to get started in wealth building, in exercising the opportunity for educational advancement, and acquiring the traditional tools of self-efficacy in this society. And the fact is, therefore, that we also have to systemically, structurally deal with this. Now, as an example, I'm a co-sponsor of the Reparations Commission, because I think it's about time that we asked ourselves, how is it that what we did to people of color, namely, and most particularly, African Americans, but other communities of color as well, how is it that what we did to them limits or handicaps the efforts or opportunities of people today to get ahead? And until we've been willing to have that difficult and open conversation, we're still going to be asking people to get way behind the starting line or to put that 80-pound backpack on. And as it relates to transparency, well, Tony, here I am answering your question. I'll be glad to continue to do it for the balance of this calendar year, which is the balance of my service in Congress.